powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Hey, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan is here today on Friday. You just heard what Jeff Lurie said there. I have great confidence that our football operations people can get us back to where we need to be. Well, they took a step to that today, Adam Caplan. They have signed their tight end, Dallas Goedert. It's a 4-year, $59 million deal. It's got $30+ million in guaranteed money. So let's start with Dallas Goedert and that deal. Did you think that they had to get this deal done now? Should they have waited for it? Why they signed that deal at this point?
Yeah, Mike, good to be with you. Yeah, the reason why they did this now was that I would go back to the start of training camp. I was told that the Eagles were the ones who backed out of pushing forward to getting an extension done. Not his side. They actually wanted to get it done after talking in the spring. And then what happened was the Ertz trade really cleared this up. Because I had said all along on Inside the Birds, Mike, that it was going to be hard to get this deal done with Ertz on the football team. It's just hard. It's less about the money. It's more about Ertz being there. Because Ertz was taking away Goedert, not only his playing time, but his production. Once you cleared the decks, you saw Goddard's playing time go up. His production had been good, though. Unfortunately, the concussion, but he's been cleared to play, so he'll play. But it's interesting because the Eagles would have used their franchise tag, as I understand it. If they would not have gotten this deal done, they would have used the franchise tag on him. So he was going to go anywhere. It's a guy they love. This coaching staff has been in on this guy from day one. But these things take time sometimes. We've seen the Eagles do this, Mike, where they get these deals done in November or December. This is not the first time they've done deals late in the season.
Yeah, so what does this mean for, moving forward here, the future of this Eagles roster? Now you've got Smith, obviously, as your receiver. You've got Goedert now as your big-time tight end. It seems that they are trying to formulate an identity with those two pieces.
Yeah, so I would say it's kind of a broader picture. Okay, what's this roster going to look like the next 3 to 4 years? Well, Devontae Smith is a starter. Goedert is a starter. Mailata is a starter. We'll see how long Lane Johnson plays. Landon Dickerson is a starter. Isaac Seumalo will be a starter somewhere. Jack Driscoll might be a starter. We weren't thinking that way to start the season. It's been a pleasant surprise. Josh Sweat is a starter. And then defensively, other than that, Darius Slay will be here next year. After that, we'll have to see. Javon Hargrave should be a starter for the long term. I mentioned Josh Sweat, and that's pretty much it. So you got 6 or 7 guys you kind of know are the base of your football team. But other than that, Mike, I'm excluding special teams. That's pretty much it right now.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people would say, hey, they got to focus on that defense. What you just said there kind of chronicles that defensive side of the ball needs a lot of help. All right, let's look at this game before we look at some of the matchups, how the injuries, Adam, might factor in here. Let's start with the Saints because their injuries are much bigger than Philadelphia's right now, and that's Kamara. Did not practice or play last week. Was out in the field Wednesday. Then he was a DNP on Thursday. What do we know about Kamara in this game on Sunday?
Yeah, Kamara, this is interesting. So what happened was he got hurt in Week 9, didn't play in Week 10, didn't even practice last week. Did work lightly on Wednesday, did not work Thursday, and the reports coming from the reporters who were at practice say that he was not there for their window to watch practices the first 20 minutes, which would tell me he'll either be limited or won't play or didn't practice at all, which makes him less than 50-50. The report from Norlands.football says he's got an MCL sprain. My understanding of it's a grade 1. He would not have been out on Wednesday to practice at all if it was worse than a grade 1. So that's generally a 2 to 3 week injury for running back. I would be surprised if he played. Now, here are the other big ones. These are both tackles. Tron Armstead is highly unlikely to play. He hasn't practiced in 2 weeks, knee and shoulder injuries. He missed time earlier this season with other injuries. James Hurst is their top backup tackle. Will start for him. Andrus Peat is lost for the season of starting guard with torn pectoral muscle. He's been out for a while anyway. Brian Ramczyk with a knee injury, didn't practice yesterday. Wasn't out there earlier today. He might not play. This is a problem. Defensively, they're in pretty good shape with injuries. But, man, Kamara, potentially not playing. Mark Ingram, by the way, would fill in for him. He's looked good. He looked like he was done with the Ravens. He doesn't look done here. He looks pretty good, and he would fill in, but he's not Kamara. Kamara's a special football player. And I would tell you this, Mike. Last year, the Eagles' D-line dominated the Saints, and if these two tackles don't play, it could be a long day for their offense.
Well, I was going to say, the last couple of weeks, it seemed that the Eagles keep having this happen. Denver had some offensive line injury issues. Los Angeles did, although they didn't take advantage of him. Detroit had problems, but it seems that they keep kind of falling into this. And as you just chronicled, as we know, when the Eagles' defense plays well, it's because they win up front, and having those guys out could really make that happen for them.
Yeah, they were not as dominant as they were, let's say, in the Atlanta game or the Carolina game where the defense took over and basically won the game for them, or the other game that they won. But I would say this. Yes, Carolina. Well, Denver last week, they were good. But they definitely are getting better. The secondary was good last week. Not great, but good. They did a good job. You and I talked on your show last Friday. The Denver's super talented wide receiver, but because of the problems with Teddy Bridgewater, and we saw him in the game. He holds on the ball, doesn't know where to go for it, and he gets hit, and he takes bad sacks, and it makes sometimes the defense look better than they are. And the Eagles, had their way, and it's pretty cool in the Q&A show with Quentin Avant and Jason Avant. They did a good job of outlining how lucky maybe the Eagles secondary got because Teddy Bridgewater didn't always throw it at Steven Nelson, who gave up some space, but they didn't throw his way. I'll be interested to see if the Saints do that. And the Saints are not very good at receiver. They're very average. But you know what? Sean Payton's a good designer of offense. You can't sleep on the coaches on the Saints. So the Eagles have some advantages here. There's no doubt about it. But you can never completely trust Jonathan Gannon. That's been my issue with the guy all season.
Yeah, we'll see if he can put together back-to-back defensive efforts. That's something
right.
that we need to see. Let's go to the Eagles on that side of the ball. Miles Sanders, and get your thoughts on whether first they're going to play him. They were kind of unclear about that today. And if he does play, where do you envision his role?
Yeah, this is interesting. So Sirianni indicated on Wednesday everything was positive for him to be able to play, and he made it clear he was the starter. Not that there was any doubt. There was very bad fan speculation that he wouldn't be, which we did. Jeff Mosher and I discussed this on Inside the Birds. We kind of laughed. Like, yeah, you definitely want your best running back not to be the guy. I mean, because all of a sudden, well, you don't want to ruin everything. Like, what is he ruining? I don't. There's just been some bad narrative of Miles Sanders. Like, you want to criticize his pass protection occasionally. Sometimes he doesn't line up correctly as a pass catcher. He's also dropped some passes. Like as a pass catcher, I get the criticism. Some of it's warranted, but not as a runner. He's terrific. But here's the thing, though. I was surprised at Sirianni. Now, I don't know if this gamesmanship, but he said they have some time to make a decision. He had 2 good practices in a row. Well, he actually practiced 3 days, so I don't quite understand why he said 2 practices. But they said that they're still going to think through a couple of things. I don't know what that means. Now, the deadline is Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern to activate him for this game. Sanders is acting like he's back, but I don't know. Did they see something in practice? I don't get it. And Sanders, remember, had a huge game last year. He had the 82-yard touchdown run, and they have nobody who can do that. That's yet another reason why they need him back.
Let's look at some of the matchups. Adam Caplan, Football at 4, the Inside the Birds podcast. Don't forget the Inside the Birds pregame show Sunday, 10 a.m. on the YouTube channel Inside the Birds with Adam and Jeff and the crew. They do a great job getting you ready.
And Twitter,
Eagles.
too. Yeah.
And the Eagles, by the way, are back at the 1 o'clock game, so you'll lead them right into that. Now, last year, Hurts had over 100 yards against this Saints team. Sanders had over 100 yards against this Saints team. So let's take a look at that matchup. The Eagle offense, especially the offensive line, against this number 1 now rush defense. They give up 72 yards per game.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a misnomer. If you look at who the Saints went up against, the running backs, most of them were not very good, except for Saquon Barkley. And Barkley was on his way to a really good game. He suffered this bad ankle injury, which has lingered for almost 6 weeks. So, but it's still good. They have a great front, maybe one of the best defensive lines in football. They're in fact, I'd say one of the best front sevens. Their linebackers are terrific, led by Demario Davis, who's awesome. They're generally are going to play 2 linebackers. They rarely play 3. They're going to play a lot of dime defense, more than most teams. You'll see 6 DBs in this game. Now, the one thing when you talk about Jalen Hurts is, and he had a great game last year when you consider he had 18 rushes for 106 yards. Now, last year, he ran the ball too much in that game. This is when he wasn't sure. This is his first ever NFL start. They did win the game. He made some good throws in this game. One Alshon Jeffrey for a big play. I just think that the way that the Eagles have run the ball, best in the National Football League, 190.25 yards a game over the last 4, they're going to come out running, mix the pass in, not the other way around, which they were doing earlier this season. But the thing they cannot do, Mike, is get desperate. If they're not starting off well in the run, can't start going crazy throwing it. But the Saints are one of the top 2 man cover teams in the league in terms of how much man coverage they play. It's almost 50-50 zone and man. And when you play a lot of man coverage, receivers actually like that because they just have to beat their man. Now, the question is, will they double Devontae Smith? Last week, the Saints doubled A.J. Brown, and they singled up former Eagle Marcus Johnson, who had 5 catches for 100 yards, I think, so and including a 50-yarder against Marcus Lattimore. So there's some hope there. And look, they don't blitz a ton. They're somewhere in the middle. But there are a lot of receivers, Mike, who've had great games. Kenny Galladay had a big game. John Ross in that game against the Saints had a big touchdown catch. Cordell Patterson crushed him a couple weeks ago in that big upset win at New Orleans. Kendrick Bourne doesn't run very well. Did DJ Moore did. Chris Godwin crushed him. So you can beat their secondary because, again, they play a lot of man coverage.
Yeah, and I know that we were talking in a fantasy sense that the slot corner for the Saints is a guy to kind of go after, and you look at maybe Quez Watkins getting himself involved in this game.
Yeah, Quez Watkins is a vertical slot. No doubt. It's a great point, Mike. The thing is they're great against tight ends. They're bad against inside receivers. Now, it doesn't mean you can't line up Devontae Smith inside, Jalen Reagor inside, who really has not gotten the ball very much, as we know. But there's going to be some opportunities here. This is a great tactical matchup. Dennis Allen, the great defensive coordinator for the Saints, and Nick Sirianni, who's done a very good job lately of calling plays.
Yeah, that's really hit on that real quick. Nick Sirianni done a really good job of calling plays. I guess the question is, they've run the ball the last 3 weeks. Is that now, are they comfortable with that being their identity?
They are. They finally have identity. I'm glad you brought that up because we kind of laughed at Sirianni when he says they didn't have an identity. I didn't quite agree with this is weeks ago. The way he said it, no, they had an identity. They were throwing the ball too much. Now, I hate to say they're running it too much, but it certainly helped Jalen Hurts. That's why they did it, and it's been a great strategy. So they need to keep doing that and not go crazy throwing the ball. If it isn't running, don't start throwing the ball 35 to 40 times. Hurts cannot handle that. Throwing it in the 20s, he works really well off of it. He's part of that run game. There's no question about it. He's been real comfortable. I would argue that this is his best game as a professional. He put up better numbers last year against Arizona. But this game, he was under way more pressure inside, and he handled their blitz. He did a great job. Best game he's had against the blitz, no question.
Oh, I agree. I thought he was I thought he looked the most polished as a passer, most patient as a decision maker that I've seen him play in however many, 14 games so far. He made a couple of big-time throws. He made a couple of big-time decisions. And Adam, he made a couple of big-time reads, checking off, moving progressions. I thought he almost took 2 steps forward from what we've seen from him in the past. That's how patient he looked last week.
Yeah, and that's what Sirianni, what he did is he went to the line, he saw certain coverage, he didn't like it, so he got them out of it. And that's really important for a young quarterback to be able to do that. And he's being coached well. Sirianni obviously is part of it. You have Brian Johnson, who he knows because Brian Johnson recruited him. He's known him since he's a kid. I mean, that stuff's important. You can't underestimate the relationship that quarterback has with the people that are coaching him, and he's starting to mature. And by the way, the other thing is we didn't mention, no offensive line right now is playing better than the Eagles. Now, I get it. This is a tough matchup, but just going into this game, the last 4 weeks, don't forget, they played well against the Raiders. It's not their fault that the defense was terrible in that game.
Right.
They ran the ball well, by the way, for 135 yards. They just got behind. But overall, Mike, the key to this thing is their offensive line. If their offensive line protects, there'll be some place in the pass game, and they will be able to run the ball a little bit if they can block up front.
All right, Adam Caplan, let's look at the Saints, what they do offensively against John Gannon's defense, and it's Trevor Siemian. I mean, we go back to, hey, against the bad quarterbacks or the mediocre quarterbacks or however you want to classify these guys, John Gannon's defense has been there. Is this a week that just by the fact that Siemian is going to make mistakes and he's not going to be accurate all the time, does that make us feel that John Gannon's defense will keep them in this game?
Yeah, well, he's got good, has average arm strength. He's got good size, not a very good athlete. You can go get him. The Eagles last year, Javon Hargrave had a great game as Josh Sweat did. If those tackles are out, Simeon's in big trouble because he's not athletic enough. In fact, I do believe, and Taysom Hill was working today. He's got a foot injury. If he's active for the game, he'll do his usual red zone wildcat plays. They'll probably have, I could see 8 to 10 touches in this game to get some juice going, especially if Kamara doesn't play. Ty Montgomery's got a minor injury, who's their third down back sometimes. He's a former receiver you might remember for the Packers. He's now a running back and a receiver. So you can see him, they'll use him out of the backfield. But overall, I'm not worried about Traquan Smith. Now, I know 4 years ago, in 2018, he crushed the Eagles and Sidney Jones. Remember Sidney Jones? This is when he grabbed his hamstring. Some people thought he was faking it. That's another story. But Traquan Smith crushed him 4 years ago. But Marquez Callaway's there. Deontay Harris, by the way, don't sleep on him. He's their diminutive punt and kickoff returner who's had sort of a breakout season at wide receiver.
Hey, I guess every week you got to ask about tight ends because you would imagine that Sean Payton knows how to game plan for the Eagles linebackers. And, they're getting a little better. I mean, Davion Taylor's a little banged up this week, but they don't really have that, marquee. This is kind of a committee, right?
Yeah, Adam Troutman was drafted to take Jared Cook's job. He got hurt in training camp with an ankle injury. And then Juwan Johnson, you might remember him as a receiver at Penn State. He's now a tight end. He's a pretty athletic guy, but he's still trying to learn the position. You're right. It's a committee. Nick Vannett will be their inside tight end, their wide tight end if he dresses. And, in fact, because of the way the Eagles – if the Eagles are getting pressure up front, you're going to see them play a lot of 12 personnel. They're going to have to keep a tight end in there or an extra blocker. There's a lot of tactical things for Sean Payton, the head coach who calls the plays, and Jonathan Gannon, who called a great game last week. I got to give him credit. And by the way, they did press coverage a little bit more. They're doing a little bit more each week. They're not great at it, but they're playing a little bit more. And you know what? I don't even know if they'll press this week because there's no one they're really probably scared of.
Right. Adam, I want to ask you about the big picture nature of this game. If the Eagles, they haven't won a home game.
I know.
If they get that first, right. If they get that first home win, they get to 5-6. Yep. What does that mean for where they kind of sit as an organization? Forget playoffs and thinking about that. But this is a team that won 4 games last year. Yeah. The expectations were kind of low. It was, hey, we need to find out. If they get this win at home and get to 5-6, they're in the thick of the playoffs. What does it mean about where this organization is?
Well, they technically would, if they win and Carolina loses, and obviously the Saints would lose to the Eagles. The Eagles would actually have a tiebreaker. They would have a tiebreaker against Atlanta, New Orleans, and Carolina. But the big picture thing is that they're a little bit ahead of schedule. I had them for 7 and 8 wins. I do win ranges on every team. That would mean they're almost certain to beat 7, and maybe they'll get 8 or 9. This would be huge. We said this on Inside the Birds. I typically don't say this stuff unless it's like the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season. This is a huge game. This is an NFC game. This is a conference game. And this is a litmus test game. You got to show up. The Saints have bad injuries. The Eagles have been terrible at home now for 2 seasons. It's embarrassing how bad they are. It's so weird. The first-year staff is 4-2 on the road. I don't get it, but it's a hell of a win last week. By the way, we were 0 for 5 on Inside the Birds pregame show. 0 for 5. We all picked Denver last week.
By the way, it's official. Kamara, Armstead, Ramczyk have all officially been ruled out of the game for Sunday for the Saints. So they are not going to play.
Eagles better win it, Mike. Eagles better win it.
All right, there he is, Adam Caplan. Don't forget the pregame show on Sunday. They'll be live at 10 a.m. on the YouTube channel Inside the Birds. Jeff Mosher's back on Monday, and Adam will be here on Friday to get us ready for Eagles and Giants. You went 0 for 5, but everybody still wants to know, who do you like?
Eagles. I've been picking them all week, and I'm sticking with it.
All right, going Eagles. So we got 2 Eagle picks so far in this week. Adam Caplan will add you to the list. Adam, have a great weekend, man.
You too. Thanks.